Jeff, can you explain what today was, how long it was, and the one quick thing, and I know you've had to answer this.
Yep.
I've asked you this so many times.
It's all right.
But how much running did they do to warm up and to cool down today?
Okay, so today was just the general term that I use is a neural session, and that's a term very common in the speed power world. So they would call a day that's fast movements, explosive movements, heavier weights, that would be labeled a neural day in speed power circles. So sprinters, jumpers, thrower folk, like that. So that's what we did today. How much did we run before?
Yep.
None.
Zero.
So we went right into our dynamic warm-up, which is a variation of what we do every day before we do any kind of running. So activity number one is skips with arms swinging forward every day of the week. Some athletes might do some individual therapy before, but as far as like actual exercise, skips with arms swinging forward, that's our first thing. So no running. And then afterwards, because of different schedules, some athletes do go run afterwards. Some athletes will wait till later in the day, 4, 6, 8 hours before they go do an easier run. And then our session length today, somewhere between an hour 20 and an hour 30.
Okay. Do you mind walking us through what each component of the session was, and also kind of why they're in the order that they're in?
Yes. So we start with a warm up, which that's self-explanatory, self-evident there, and we use a dynamic warm up. So skipping activities, various activities in different planes of movement, forward, backward, lateral. And then some dynamic flexibility things like leg swings, ground-based and like fire hydrants, just various activities like that. And then what a lot of people recognize is sprint drills, A skip, B skip, and we have a series of those. So that's the warm-up. And then after the warm-up, we move into still a bit of a warm-up activity, but it's a transition activity from a central nervous system component. Or central nervous system perspective, and that component would be dribbles, which would be truncated running movements, and we do 30 meters of those, 3 at each height, and the heights are ankle, calf, and knee, and so that refers to how high an athlete is stepping over. So they'll start with 3 stepping over their ankle, 3 stepping over their calf, 3 stepping over their knee.
And I want to interrupt here. I mean, you have athletes who, for distance runners, are really good at it, right?
Yes. Yeah. I would call them video quality.
Nice.
We have some distance athletes that are video quality with that.
And we're doing this in mid-November 2019.
December.
Oh, December. Yeah. But if we go back to August and September, how did they look?
Some have been doing it for a little bit longer, so they're proficient. Others, even today, there's cueing going on because foot contacts need to be improved or arm position potentially needs to be improved. But in the scope of this season, by and large, most people are progressing nicely from where they were. No one's starting out. Their video quality now, they may not have been in August.
Perfect. All right. So from there, what do you go into?
So after the dribbles, then we move into some kind of running, and it's sprinting. So it's fast running, and we primarily do 2 different disciplines. So either open sprinting, somewhere between 40 meters and eventually maybe up to 150 meters, and then we'll do running over wickets or mini hurdles, or pipes, or pieces of tape, depending on what you have. And those are if max sprinting. I tell people to go run 98%, because if they go 100%, then they start to strain and get really tight. So, but it's fast. It's as fast as you can move, essentially. And then going over the wickets is still very fast, but it's maybe 90, maybe up to 95%. But it's not quite as fast. And so then we'll move into that. That's the next segment of practice, and I have a season progression of that. But then we're also taking into account how the athlete feels on a given day. And so some days we may think they're going to do some sprinting, but they're a little off, and so we either reduce it, we'll do more dribbles, or maybe we'll do wickets. We'll kind of play that by ear depending on how they feel.
Yeah. Can you explain why some people, why the progression was some 40-meter max sprints, and then how many at 60, and then why did you move back to 50 meters? Yeah. So there was 40 meters, 60 meters, and 50 meters, and why in that order?
Yeah. So 40 meters is what we start with at day one. So that's the shortest for distance athletes that I'll sprint with. Like with sprinters, they may do 10 meter, 20 meter, 30 meter sprints, but for a distance person, like, we want to be able to accelerate, but it's not ultimately imperative to our race. So we start with 40 meters, which is kind of the upper end of acceleration. So we start with 40 today, because essentially it's a distance that everyone's comfortable with and is competent doing, so they can execute that. 4 to 5, because we always want to write in some kind of bandwidth to see how people feel and pull them off if we need to, or they can do the max amount. Then we moved to 60 meters, and that was a new distance for us with open sprinting. We've done 60 over wickets, so again, fast but not all the way fast. And so we wanted to go to 60 before going to 50, because we wanted to do that with a nice warm up of 40s, or priming the system with the 40s, something they're competent with. Then moving to this new distance that's farther, while they're still feeling good. Well, there's less CNS fatigue, central nervous system fatigue. So then we did 1 to 2 by 60 meters. And the reasons that someone would only do 1 is because they either can't maintain form and posture through 60 meters, or they didn't feel good doing it. Today, everybody felt good, so everybody did 2 by 60. Because that's a new distance and it's more neurologically demanding, I still wanted them to run fast but farther, so then we just backed off a little bit and we did 2 to 3 by 50 meters. So a distance that they should still be able to handle, and we could get all of them in, or 2 to 3 of them in, as opposed to the 60, which may be central nervous system fatigue inducing more than the 50s. So that's why we did 40, 60, 50.
Perfect. So then after that, what was on tap?
So, and I guess I spoke out of turn a little bit. I coach a couple of steeplechase athletes, and those women, before they sprint, they'll do technical work, which is hurdle clearances. So they did some various hurdle technique exercises, then they sprinted. The folks that aren't steeplechasers, they sprinted, and then they moved into multi-jump circuits. And today we did kind of the rudiment, so kind of the most basic multi-jump circuit that we have.
Great. And why that multi-jumps? And you could consider that plyos?
Yeah. I think plyometric is a big, broad term.
Okay.
And most people tend to think of it as jumping. I would say that a sprint is a plyometric movement as well. So I try to be specific with the terms.
Yep.
Not that plyometric's a bad term. I like to try to be specific. So sprinting, and then multi-jump circuits. So with rudiment, it's the least complex of where you could go from like a progression. A progression would be in-place jumps. This is after rudiment. In-place jumps into extended bounds, and then more complicated extended, excuse me, I said this last week too. So scratch all that.
Yeah.
Rudiment, a progression. Rudiment, in-place jumps, short horizontal bounds, more complex short horizontal bounds, extended bounds, hurdle hops, complex hurdle hops, and then box jumps. Yep. That would be a standard progression of plyometrics or multi-jump circuit. So with rudiment, it's a very good way to teach foot contacts, and with where everybody is, some folks raced a little bit in the fall, and then they took a couple of weeks of like an active transition, active break, and so this is their first week back. So we just want to go back to rudiment as opposed to going to something more complex. Other athletes are newer, and so we're just really trying to get their foot contacts down, so they're proficient there before we move to more complex circuits. So some people might be on rudiment for a year before they move on.
Yep.
to something more.
And real quick, explain how you want that foot contact during this.
So foot contact's going to be at the ideally I want to see it rolling, so a heel.
Here, I actually, yeah. Why don't we show it with your foot?
Yep. So a heel to toe contact. So good pronounced dorsiflexion, and then my balance. So landing and then active movement. So it's not a here and then staying on your heel like a heel walk would be, but landing and then rotate, or landing and then progressively rolling your foot forward. At the very least, I would say flat-footed, but not on the toes. We don't want to be toey. So active dorsiflexion, active rolling, or flat-footed on contact.
How hard is that? How hard is that to teach?
Seems like for some it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
But then
says the nicest coach in America, which means it's probably pretty challenging.
But it also gives some context into as to why there might be something else going on. For example, have an athlete who was here today, Matt, who had a calcaneal stress fracture that probably he had it when I started working with him in March of this past year. His comment once we had that diagnosis, I've probably had this for over a year. So he's really guarded and really cautious on that heel where he had stress fracture.
Yeah.
So it creates, there's more layers than just like someone's not coordinated.
Right.
They can't do it. It gives some other insight as to what might be going on. And he had as a side effect of that stress fracture and protecting it, he's very toey on that foot, and then his Achilles his Achilles tendon and plantar fascia on that foot are pretty wound up, and that's how we found it out and were able to diagnose it. So it's not just a coordinative athletes don't know how to do it kind of thing. That could be an indicator of something else, but for as simple as it sounds, it's not always as easy to get it to play out.
That's fantastic. Okay, so after the multi jumps, let's see if I remember practice. There's two more things, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So after multi jump, here in this setting, we do isometric holds. If I had a facility where I had a turf field or a track and a weight room nearby, like at a high school or a college, I would then go into the weight room and do clean, squats, deadlift, whatever the assignments for the day, pressing exercises. But because I don't have access to that in this setting, we do isometric holds. And isometric holds are a really easy, nice way to recruit muscle fiber.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we do that, and I've got a couple of different sets and progressions that we do with the isometric holds, squats or lunges or hamstring curls and push-ups. And then, and so we layer those in over the weeks and the amount that we progress through or rest through. And then after that, we finish with our harmonizing activity of a multi-throw. So it's still explosive, still some resistance, but we're taking a medicine ball, or if we have a shot put, that would work equally as well. And we're launching that thing as far as we can.
Yep.
And that's how we're ending practice.
Yeah, great. Yeah, can you explain too? I mean, how this fits in the context of a week of training?
Yeah. So very very common for us to do this on a Thursday, and our typical weekly setup is I'll just start with Sunday long run. So most Sundays, two-thirds of the time, incorporated in our long run, we have a workout built in. So we might be doing 12 to, this is for non-marathoners, so we might be doing 12 to 17 miles, and somewhere in that long run we might be doing like a harder segment, like a tempo or marathon pace segment for a couple miles, or we may be doing a fartlek at the end of it or a fartlek in the middle of it. So Monday, or so long run, it's a long run, and that's challenging, and then we also spice it up with a little workout at times. So Monday is an easy recovery day. Tuesday is a workout, and depending on the time of year, that's gonna impact the workout. This week, we did some lactate threshold work followed by some mile pace work, and that was all the athletes that aren't marathoners did that. Wednesday is then primary unloading day of the week. And so that could be one run, that could be two runs, it could be cross training, it could be a run in cross training, could be a day off. It's up to the athlete to pay attention and know what they need to do on that day. And then Thursday we come out here and we do the neural session in the morning. I think I hit on it earlier. Some athletes, because of their work schedule, they go run right away after this. For some athletes, I would say ideally, for some athletes, if they could wait 4, 6, or 8 hours, then they
Sure.
could get an easy run in. Tomorrow we'll come back with a workout. Again, depending on the time of the year, that workout's going to be different. This week, some athletes will do a couple of 120s at 400 meter pace, and then they'll follow that up with a couple of 200s at 800 meter pace. Some other athletes will do some fartlek work at 3K to 5K effort. And then Saturday will be another regeneration day. So 1 run, 2 runs, cross training, run, or off. And then we're back to Sunday. And that pattern stays pretty consistent throughout the year. We'll talk with all the athletes and kind of pay attention to how they're doing. But as we get closer in this year, an Olympic trials year, we may shift the weeks a little bit. And we'll drop the long run. We'll add another neural session in the week, just depending on who the athlete is and what they seem to be responding to, what they like, and how that seems to potentially best benefit them in the heart of the racing season, or leading up to that, kind of through April, May, June.
Jeff, you're truly an endurance coach, because you've talked beautifully for 17 minutes, but I still have 2 more questions.
Yes.
Okay. And then we can wrap up. Okay. So you said last week when we were at the track and it was cold and rainy, by the way, this is pretty ideal weather right now for December in Boulder.
I'll take this in December.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said if you can get 3 lanes and 100 meters, you can get a lot of work done, right?
Yes.
And today they didn't even need 100 meters.
Right. And I say that in the context of I'd be able to do just about everything I wanted to. So if I had a facility that was a tube, if you will, like a half barn,
Sure,
that was 100 meters long, that had 3 lanes, kind of like I think Jen Schur, she's got a barn up in northern New York or something like that, where she vaults, and it's just got that in there. That's what I always think about. Like, you could use that all the time.
Yeah.
But today I think the most we needed, I think everyone was done decelerating by about 85 meters.
By about
Sorry,
85 meters.
Down,
Yeah. I'd look down there too. But the idea is, I mean, this field is, from where you're standing, this field isn't even 100 meters.
Yeah, or maybe right at it.
Maybe right at 100 meters,
Yeah.
and they were not at the end at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So most of the work for 2/3 of the year is going to be 90 meters or less. And then there'll come a point where I'd like to have 90, 100, 120, even up to 150 meters
Sure.
for speed endurance stuff. But the vast majority is, we can get done.
So and here's the final thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been over a decade ago that I either read or heard Vern Gambetta say, he would talk about the weight room without walls.
Yes.
And I feel like everything we have on film from today really highlights the fact that, you have hurdles that break down. You made your own mini hurdles out of PVC pipe,
Yep.
and then there's med balls, and that's basically it.
Yep. And the weight room without walls, like you can get a lot done without needing much. I mean, this is off camera. About 100 meters behind you, there's a bunch of stones that are about this big, and I forgot med balls about a year ago one day for practice, and we just went over and grabbed the stones and threw those because I forgot the med balls.
Yeah.
And that worked equally as well.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't do it, throw it, but a gallon of a milk jug or a gallon jug filled with water weighs about 8 pounds. So there's your med ball.
Right.
I wouldn't do multi-throw with it. Go get a stone for that. But
Right.
You can use a milk jug with water to do med ball circuits, whatever you might be doing.
Yeah.
So weight room without walls, and pizza boxes make really good hurdles as well. Like college athletes, just save your pizza boxes and set those up, and then you have some mini hurdles.
Awesome. Jeff, thanks so much. This was great. I really enjoyed being at practice.
Thank you.
And thanks for dealing with all my questions.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, Jay. It's a pleasure.
All right.